Good folks, what is up? How are you doing? This is Valentine Plug, and today we are gonna talk about sound selection for your R&B beats. And I'm gonna be using myself as a template. Of course, I'm gonna try and explain my sound selection decisions to the best of my ability. And if you've got any questions, please drop me in the comments, and I will get back to you. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, or subscribe. Any one of the 3 or 4 is fine with me. So let's get into the matter. Alright, boom. So we're in FL Studio. The first thing that I want to do is play all the beat, so y'all can have a better idea of the decisions that I make as I explain them. Alright, let's go to the beat. It's an amazing beat. It's one of my best beats ever. It's a typical, it has a lot of elements of those 60s soul ballads where they just really want the lady to come back. It's a lot of blazing horns and that kind of stuff. And beat like this has a similar energy that's reminiscent of that. I really love it. So let me go and break down the choices that I made in terms of sound selection. We're mostly going to be talking about the instruments and drums, of course. Boom. So easily the most defined instrument in this mix is the piano, and I consciously made a decision for a bright piano because the rest of the beat is pretty dark. The mood is dark, the rest of the instruments such as the pad, the guitar, the vocal samples are pretty dark and heavily filtered. So this bright piano immediately stands out, and that's a conscious decision that you gotta make. When you start building your beat, look at your instrumentation, look at the aesthetic you want to go for, look at the emotion your beat just exudes, and make a decision. Is a bright piano gonna help? Or is it better for the general vibe of my beat if I take a piano and I filter out some of the high and mid-high frequencies to get a more muffled effect? That's a conscious decision that you gotta make. Why I choose the piano? Well, it is the piano that when I lay down chords, it allows me to hear where I'm going and what kind of setting and what kind of emotion I'm exuding. I mean, chords speak for themselves, but that is enhanced by the instrument that you're using. I find that if I start off with a guitar, I usually don't exactly hear where I'm going, or when I start off with bells or a pad for that matter. I need something with decent attack, decent harmonics, defined transients that really allows me to hear where I'm going. So that's why I choose the piano. But pianos are also staples in my R&B beats because I think that is an instrument that people will recognize the most. And when people recognize elements of your beat, that makes it more accessible. So that's in a nutshell why I choose the piano, why I choose a bright piano. In terms of VSTs, I actually got this piano from Analog Lab 5. It's the American Small Studio, but usually when I pick my pianos, I go for one of the native instruments pianos, so the Gentleman, the Grandeur, the Maverick, or Noir. So generally I take my pianos in contact, but occasionally I dip and I flirt a little bit with Analog Lab. Alright, so after the piano came the electric guitar. I made a very conscious decision for an electric guitar because I don't have an acoustic guitar, so my electric guitar is basically the only thing I got, even though I've got a couple of contact libraries, which I'm going to show. But the point is this: I feel that there's a very pleasant combination between an acoustic piano and an electric guitar. I've heard that in a lot of R&B beats. I think they complement each other well. And one thing you really need to realize when you're selecting sounds is that you build. I started out with the piano, and basically the question after that was, what complements that piano? And this electric guitar, which is my own hollow body guitar, by the way, complemented that perfectly. But it doesn't stop there because I had a very dry signal. I mean, if I play the guitar without any processing, it's not bad, but it could definitely use a lot more pizzazz. And I added that pizzazz by EQing, making a few big cuts, and I added some pizzazz by adding chords, of course. Now I gotta say, I did run it through Guitar Rig 6, so you're not hearing the entire dry signal, but this is what I had to work with, and I think it works well. Now if you're looking to add guitars to your beats, the contact libraries that I can recommend for electric guitar are Evolution Jazz Archtop and Electric Sunburst Deluxe. And if you're looking for acoustic guitars, I can recommend Picked Acoustic or Ample Sound has an amazing acoustic guitar too. And if you're looking for a nylon guitar, I can definitely recommend Evolution Modern Nylon, especially due to their engines, which are customizable. I love them actually. So that's my so that's why I chose an electric guitar. I think it works well for R&B. It's also an instrument that people recognize, so there's that accessibility and that relatability again. So this is the part where I add the pad, right? Let me just play out the pad. And I played it to y'all without processing and with processing. Now the reason why I use pads, and I think I went over this in my how to mix pads video, go and check that out please if you haven't already. The reason why I use pads, look at it this way. So I got my piano and I got my guitar, right? I got a very bright ensemble, you know. What I want to add to that is a little bit of darkness, because we're still going for a dark, gloomy kind of vibe, and I think a pad does an amazing job for that. A pad, I feel, is the most important element to your vibe. Well, not your vibe, your ambience. Your ambience, the general feeling of the beat, the emotion that springs up in people's minds the first time when they hear the beat. I think the pad is a very valuable addition to that. So that's why I keep flocking to pads. But also look at it this way. I got my piano and my guitar. I got them very much up front, right? But I need something to be able to provide that same vibe in the back. You know, when I look at music, I separate it in front, back, left, right, you know, stereo visualize it in 3D. So the pad needs to be in the back for me, and the vocal sample is the same thing. This applies to vocal samples as well. I don't like setting them up front. I want them in the back for the sake of that ambience. So that's why I just keep coming back. Now your pad processing is very important too, because you don't want your pad to be like a blanket in the bag that's just playing a couple of chords. If you add some movement to them, you know, by volume shaping and filter shaping and pan shaping, you make them a lot more interesting. You give your listener the ability to just zone out and not focus on the piano and the guitar, but to focus on that pad in the back. There's layers to that, you know, a very interesting layer. Last thing that I want to say, if you're looking for good pads, Analog Lab, Omnisphere, Xpand, Electra X, and the Cloud Supply bank in Contact. They all work amazing for pads. My personal preference when it comes to making pads, when it comes to using pads, is either synth pads or string pads, atmospheric pads, or pads with a lot of movement. You can make them work in R&B, but I think they're a little bit too busy. I think they've got too much going on with the smelling, with the swelling, and the way the filter is set up. You can tweak that, of course, but if you want to be efficient, Omnisphere, Analog Lab, Electra X, and Xpand are good for just good pads that you can immediately use out the box. One thing I do want to emphasize is when I choose claps and when I choose snares. I noticed that for these Bryson Tiller type beats that I want to hit hard on a 2 and a 4, you know, that I want to add some accents that you really hear that snare hit, I choose snares. I choose snares because they hit heavier. When it's more of a bouncy beat, an energetic beat, a happy beat, I'm more inclined to use claps or rim shots. I don't like snares on faster beats. I don't. I like snares a lot on slower beats. Like everything up to 120 BPM is all snares, and after that it becomes more trappy, more faster. That's where it's in clap and rim shot territory for me. All right. One thing that you really need to pay attention to is your choice of hi-hats. I feel that hi-hats can cause ear fatigue relatively quickly. So make sure that, you know, make sure that you don't choose hi-hats that are way too bright, because they can get tired easily. Or you can just compress them, of course. I think that this is the end of the video, and what I want to say is that a lot of decisions that I made in this beat are of course influenced by the fact that I'm having a sad beat. I definitely would have made different decisions to explain to you if I'd taken a more bouncy and upright, up-tempo beat. So take this as a guideline for how to at least make darker R&B beats. But you know, the decision, I'm sitting here explaining all of my decisions like this, and what I want y'all to be able to do is when people ask you why did you do it, that you're able to explain it just effortlessly instead of, well, it sounds good. Music is much more fun if you are unconsciously conscious of your decisions, if you get what I mean. And that's what I wish for all of y'all. So either way, thank y'all for peeping the vid. Y'all be easy, have a good one, and I'm gonna see y'all soon. Peace.